She'll be arrested for 10 days for contempt of court. Go now.
After wreaking havoc and crossing every line, these Karens are facing the ultimate consequence. And when they face the results of their actions, particularly legal repercussions as severe as life sentences, their reactions can be both telling and varied. From denial to outrage, from bargaining to acceptance, here are 11 dangerous Karens reacting to life sentences. Isabella Guzman. At the tender age of 18, Isabella Guzman shocked her family by committing the brutal act of killing her mother. While her loved ones were left speechless, they remembered her as a kind-hearted soul, despite her history of behavioral challenges from childhood. Following her arrest, Guzman entered a plea of not guilty because of insanity. Subsequent medical evaluations revealed her affliction with schizophrenia, shedding light on her mental state. On August 28, 2013, tragedy unfolded in Aurora, Colorado, when Isabella Guzman fatally stabbed her mother, Yunmi Hoy, 79 times. Guzman's troubled journey began early with behavioral struggles, leading her mother to seek temporary refuge with her biological father, Robert Guzman. Despite returning to Hoy's care, Guzman's challenges persisted, culminating in her high school dropout.
When you did what you did, how did it feel?
I didn't kill anybody. It was disgusting.
Did it feel good?
It's disgusting. You guys really think I'm a murderer?
Yeah, we're not joking.
The strained relationship between Guzman and Hoy worsened rapidly, marked by escalating conflicts. A distressing altercation on August 27th saw Guzman's behavior reach alarming levels, prompting Hoy's fearful response to a disturbing email. Seeking help, Hoy contacted authorities and Robert Guzman for intervention, but tragically, their efforts were futile. It was on the evening of August 28th, 2013, that tragedy struck after Yunmi Hoy returned home from work, intending to shower. However, her routine was interrupted by her frantic screams heard by her husband, Ryan Hoy. Rushing upstairs, he encountered a harrowing scene. Blood had started seeping beneath the door. Despite his efforts to intervene, Isabella remained silent, emerging only to walk past him with a blood-stained knife. Inside the bathroom, Hoy discovered his wife, lifeless amidst a bloody scene of violence. Isabella, already fled, was swiftly pursued and apprehended by authorities. During her arraignment hearing on September 5, 2013, Isabella Guzman's behavior drew attention as she had to be forcibly removed from her cell. Upon reaching the courtroom, she continued with her disturbing behavior. She displayed a series of peculiar expressions, smirking and gesturing towards the camera in an unsettling manner. Pleading not guilty because of insanity, Guzman's case took a complex turn. The judge acknowledged her plea and directed her to the Colorado Mental Health Institute in Pueblo for evaluation and treatment. Emphasizing public safety, he mandated her confinement until deemed no longer a threat to herself or society. Darla Jackson. At 27 years old, Darla Jackson admitted guilt in the tragic demise of U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer Zachary Buob, aged 39. It happened during a harrowing road rage episode that unfolded in San Diego. The fateful encounter occurred on May 28, 2015, as Buob, a passionate lover of motorcycles and dirt bikes, navigated his red Ducati motorcycle along northbound Interstate 5 near E Street in Chula Vista. Eyewitnesses recounted the alarming sequence of events as Buob transitioned into the fast lane, only to be abruptly cut off by Jackson's speeding Nissan Altima, which recklessly maneuvered ahead of him within the same lane, even veering onto the left shoulder of the freeway to achieve this. Amidst their interaction, Buob allegedly kicked the passenger side door of Jackson's vehicle before swiftly departing. In a tragic twist, Jackson pursued him in an attempt to note down his license plate, inadvertently resulting in a fatal collision that claimed Buob's life. Prosecutors framed the incident as a fatal manifestation of road rage, stressing the grave consequences. During Jackson's emotional preliminary hearing in November 2015, witnesses recounted Buob's reaction to being cut off by Jackson. They described his disapproval through gestures of shaking his head and pointing in a reprimanding manner. The tense encounter escalated as Jackson allegedly swerved her vehicle on the freeway. As Buob navigated towards the off-ramp to eastbound State Route 54, Jackson maintained close pursuit. Tragedy struck moments later as Jackson's high-speed pursuit culminated in a devastating collision with Bob's motorcycle. The crash, occurring at 81 miles per hour, resulted in Bob being thrown from his bike amidst a scene clouded by brake lights and dust. He succumbed to his injuries an hour later at a San Diego hospital.
I'm going to commit you to the Department of Corrections, Ms. Jackson, for the middle term of 6 years
for the reasons I've stated.
In a courtroom filled with heavy emotion, Darla Jackson's tears flowed freely as she faced the consequences of her actions. The judge's decision to impose a 6-year prison term for Buab's death fell within the range of 3 to 11 years, opting for a midterm sentence. Having already served 2 years in jail, her prior time was factored into the final ruling. Jackson's anguish erupted upon hearing her fate, her cries echoing through the courtroom as she was escorted away. Meanwhile, Gary and Kathy Buab, the victim's parents, expressed disappointment, feeling that justice had not been fully served, highlighting disparities in sentencing outcomes. Kimberly Kessler. Accused of a heinous crime, 50-year-old Kimberly Kessler stood trial for the disappearance of her co-worker, 34-year-old Jolene Cummings, who vanished in 2018. Cummings's absence for 3 years before the trial raised suspicion, with no activity recorded in her bank account during that period. Prosecutors revealed Cummings's anticipation of her upcoming birthday and Mother's Day plans with her children, highlighting the tragic interruption of her life, allegedly occurring while both women worked at Tangle's hair salon in May 2018. Prosecutors asserted that Kessler, amidst these plans, ended Cummings' life. In a meticulous examination of the evidence, prosecutors scrutinized every detail, from the presence of Cummings' blood all over the interior of Tangle's to incriminating video footage capturing Kessler's activities. The video footage included her procurement of supplies and driving of Cummings' vehicle. Disturbing internet searches, such as Jolene Cummings' No Body, No Crime, further increased suspicions. Highlighting a strained relationship between the two women, prosecutors underscored a tense exchange preceding Cummings' disappearance. In a compelling finale during closing arguments, prosecutors painted a vivid picture for the jury, alleging that Kessler resorted to using scissors to perpetrate Cummings's demise, followed by the calculated disposal of her body. In a shocking turn, she embarked on a self-imposed starvation regimen, resulting in a dramatic weight loss from 196 to a mere 74 pounds. Despite attempts to evade trial due to mental incompetence, the judge ruled her fit for trial, necessitating her eventual appearance in court, albeit in a wheelchair. During the sentencing, Kessler made 3 appearances in the courtroom as the judge sought to allow her to participate. However, each time her outbursts, primarily shouting about Jordan Beard being Jolene Cummings' cousin, a fact repeatedly debunked during the trial, interrupted proceedings. The jury was absent during these episodes, and Kessler was subsequently relocated to a separate room to observe the trial. The disruptions were similar to what had occurred previously in court. Judge James H. Daniels solemnly delivered the verdict, condemning Kessler to life imprisonment without parole for the murder of 34-year-old Jolene Cummings, thus marking the conclusion of the trial. Diana Lovejoy. Coming up next is Diana Lovejoy, a 45-year-old woman who faced accusations of orchestrating a terrible scheme to murder her estranged husband, Greg Mulvihill. The plot interestingly involved her gun instructor, Weldon McDavid Jr., as a co-conspirator. It was McDavid who ultimately pulled the trigger, targeting the victim on a dimly lit, desolate path in Carlsbad. Remarkably, Greg Mulvihill survived the attempted assassination. The incident unfolded amidst the acrimonious backdrop of Lovejoy and Mulvihill's messy divorce. It also involved a bitter custody dispute over their son, the whole thing reaching its climax in September 2016. Deputy District Attorney Jody Breton contended that Lovejoy manipulated McDavid with fabricated tales of abuse to execute the shooting. Following their separation in the summer of 2014, Diana Lovejoy made harrowing allegations against her husband, accusing him of sexual abuse directed at both herself and their young son. Initially, the family court decreed supervised visitation for him. However, subsequent investigations refuted these claims, granting Greg Mulvihill shared custody. It emerged that Lovejoy's accusations were baseless, orchestrated solely to manipulate the situation in her favor. Fast forward to the summer of 2016, after a protracted legal battle, Lovejoy and Mulvihill reached an accord, joint custody of their then 3-year-old son, alongside Lovejoy's agreement to a $120,000 settlement. Yet tranquility was shattered on the ominous night of September 1st, 2016, as Mulvihill fell victim to a gunshot wound on a secluded trail off Avenida Soledad near Rancho Santa Fe Road in Carlsbad, lured into the darkness under nefarious circumstances. Months preceding the tragic event, Lovejoy and McDavid's relationship had begun. Their paths crossed at the Oceanside Gun Range, where McDavid was employed. He later extended his services by installing a security system in Lovejoy's residence. Despite McDavid's marital status, intimacy ensued between them. On the fateful night of the shooting, McDavid orchestrated a deceitful ploy, utilizing a burner phone procured by Lovejoy. He assumed the guise of a private investigator. He deceitfully lured Mulvihill, promising evidence of abuse along a desolate path off Avenida Soledad. This fabricated narrative, aimed to incriminate Mulvihill, unfolded under the cloak of darkness. As Mulvihill, accompanied by a friend, cautiously approached the designated location, their vigilance could not shield them from the treacherous ambush orchestrated by McDavid. He lay camouflaged in the shadows, poised to execute his deadly agenda. The prosecutor, painting McDavid as a proficient marksman, contended that the trigger was pulled with intent, portraying him as a hired gun. Throughout the court proceedings, Diana maintained a veneer of stoicism, betraying no hint of emotion, even as her ex-husband recounted the harrowing events leading to the alleged attempted murder. The inexplicable nature of her reaction confused the investigators. Detectives grew suspicious of her seemingly inappropriate reaction, giggling in response to the news of her child's father being shot and hospitalized. However, Diana's demeanor underwent a dramatic shift upon receiving her sentence of 26 years to life. Initially, disbelief flickered across her face, swiftly replaced by devastation as she collapsed in her chair, prompting frantic calls for assistance from her attorney. Sahara Tabriz Fakir. 32-year-old Sahara Tabriz Fakir faces charges for the first-degree murder of 66-year-old Jerry Wheeler. This shocking incident unfolds with Sahara forcefully entering the home of Jerry, a businessman, husband, father, and grandfather. The encounter escalates into a violent attack, tragically resulting in Jerry's demise. Fortunately, law enforcement managed to track and apprehend Sahara Fakir roughly a month following the commission of the crime. Sahara Fakir's brutal act robbed the community of a cherished figure. Jerry Wheeler, revered as a diligent cornerstone of the Douglas County community, fell victim to Fakir's senseless violence. Engaged in the simple act of preparing his evening meal, Wheeler's peaceful routine was shattered by Fakir's deadly assault. Wheeler, aged 66, presided over Lee Road Auto Service, but his absence prompted concern from his son, a deputy with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, who discovered Wheeler's lifeless body. As Wheeler's wife was away, he was left alone to cook dinner when tragedy struck. The lingering aroma of turnip greens, untouched on the stove, greeted the investigators when they arrived, but it was Sahara Fakir's bizarre attitude and speech in court that would put the icing on the cake. During her initial court appearance, Fakir made a startling declaration regarding her legal representation. She boldly asserted that Allah would serve as her advocate, pledging retribution for her perceived injustices.
Do you have a lawyer?
Allah is my lawyer right now.
Are you
He's speaking for me.
Are you going to get a lawyer?
Allah is my lawyer right now. And if you do not release me, Allah will have his vengeance on you. Like he did in 2009 when he sent that flood. It's only going to get worse.
However, events took a downward spiral when Fakir encountered local news coverage of her case. In a fit of rage, she denounced them as the Illuminati Reptilian News Channel, revealing her escalating hostility towards media scrutiny.
Top 5, really? That Illuminati Reptilian News Channel. Really?
Convicted on charges of murder, armed robbery, and burglary, Sahara Tabriz Fakir, a 33-year-old resident of Douglas County, faced the consequences of her heinous actions. The jury swiftly delivered a guilty verdict, mirroring the weight of evidence against her. Fakir's crime, the fatal stabbing of her neighbor during a mundane evening meal preparation, warranted a life sentence behind bars without the possibility of parole. The hastened trial outcome served as a gleam of justice, ensuring accountability for the tragic loss of Jerry Wheeler. Through the court's decisive actions, closure and a semblance of solace were bestowed upon the grieving community. Camia Gamet. Convicted of first-degree murder, Camia Gamet faced justice for the brutal demise of her 38-year-old boyfriend, Marcel Hill. His life ended tragically, succumbing to a vicious onslaught of beatings and numerous stab wounds. Described as one of the most horrific and cold-blooded murders witnessed in the county in recent memory, the details of the crime were harrowing. Gamet's use of a fillet knife, coupled with 11 relentless stabbings, left Hill bloodied and cut like a gutted fish. In the courtroom, Camia Gamet and her attorney Anthony Raduazzo contended that Gamet's actions were rooted in self-defense, describing a harrowing scenario of confronting an unidentified assailant in the darkness. Recounting the terrifying moment of awakening to glass shards raining down, Gamet claimed she instinctively struck back until the threat ceased. Chief Assistant Prosecutor Kati Rezmierski, however, presented a different narrative, alleging premeditation and calculated intent behind Gamet's actions. Testimony revealed that Hill sustained 11 stab wounds, compounded by previous instances of violence she had done against him. Exhibiting an array of weapons utilized in the attack, the jury was shown a broken and bloody floor lamp, a knife, and a twisted frying pan. Rezmierski further stressed the stark discrepancy in injuries between Gamet and Hill, emphasizing the severity of his suffering.
Still, while family members spoke, she would only roll her eyes and laugh.
Her inability or unwillingness to maintain composure contrasted with the severity of the charges against her. Within the courtroom, tension hung heavily in the air, exacerbated by Gamet's conspicuous lack of remorse. Judge John McBain found himself in a relentless struggle to maintain order in the courtroom, repeatedly urging Camia to observe silence. Her blatant arrogance and disregard for decorum continuously challenged the boundaries of acceptable conduct. Despite the judge's repeated admonitions, the trial unfolded amidst a backdrop of escalating defiance. McBain's usual composure was severely tested, culminating in a rare display of emotion as he acknowledged the unsettling nature of the crime. Ultimately, Camia's actions led to her sentencing, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, marking a conclusion to one of the most cold-blooded cases. Julissa Thaler. Julissa Thaler, a 29-year-old Spring Park resident, made an alarming request at a store, asking for ammunition to blow the biggest hole. Tragically, just 10 days after regaining full custody of her 6-year-old son, Eli Hart, she was found guilty of fatally shooting him. This harrowing incident raised significant concerns about the oversight of child welfare workers. Following less than 2 hours of deliberation in Hennepin County District Court, Thaler was convicted of first-degree murder. Notably, Thaler's troubled history, marked by mental illness and substance abuse, came to light during the trial. Investigators revealed that Eli was shot inside his mother's vehicle at Lake Minnetonka Regional Park in Minnetrista. His body discovered in the trunk after Thaler was pulled over for a traffic violation.
What looks like blood in there?
It's not blood, it's deer meat. I had a big bag there's a farm around here that does deer meat and hamburger.
Eli Hart, tragically subjected to 9 gunshot wounds by his own mother while seated in his booster seat, was discovered lifeless in the trunk of their vehicle following a routine traffic stop. In a grim series of events, she tampered with evidence, misled law enforcement, and attempted to flee the scene. During trial summations, Thaler's defense counsel, Brian Leary, conceded her involvement in the child's demise, but contested her direct role in the shooting. Despite her silence on the stand and the absence of defense witnesses, Assistant Hennepin County Attorney Dan Allard presented compelling evidence, notably cell phone records linking Thaler to the crime scenes. He posited motives ranging from financial gain through insurance policies to mental health struggles and the strain of custody battles. Allard emphasized damning forensic findings, such as the boy's DNA on Thaler's person and garments, challenging her narrative of innocence. He pointedly questioned why she didn't alert authorities upon being pulled over, opting instead for silence rather than reporting the horrific incident.
Ms. Thaler, you have a right to speak this morning if you'd like. You don't have any obligation to speak, but if you'd like to choose to speak, now is the time to do it.
Yes, I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
I'm innocent. Fuck you all. You're garbage.
Then, a pivotal moment unfolded as Julissa Thaler seized the chance to address the court. Her unexpected outburst left those in attendance stunned as she vehemently asserted her innocence and hurled profanities towards the court and its spectators. In Minnesota, conviction for first-degree murder invariably leads to life imprisonment without parole, a legal formality, which is what Thaler got. She would spend the rest of her life behind bars. Taylor Shabuznes. This next Karen took gruesomeness and bad behavior in court to another level. Taylor Shabuznes, a 25-year-old married mother of 1, faced justice with a conviction on 3 serious felony charges: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault in connection to the tragic demise of 24-year-old Shad Therian in September 2022. The harrowing details emerged during trial proceedings, revealing that Shabuznes had strangled Therian to death during a drug-fueled encounter involving methamphetamines. Shockingly, she callously boasted to law enforcement about her enjoyment of the heinous act. Adding to the horror, she callously placed Therian's mutilated head in a bucket for his mother to discover, while authorities later uncovered the victim's dismembered torso and genitals and removed organs in the basement. Shabuznes's descent into chaos began with the loss of her employment at the Cheesecake Factory, a consequence of her perpetual state of intoxication or inability to fulfill her duties. Compounded by a complex medical history including bipolar disorder, schizoaffective spectrum disorder, PTSD, major depressive disorder, and untreated ADHD, her substance abuse issues worsened. Despite her multifaceted mental health challenges, prosecutors spotlighted damning evidence hinting at premeditation. However, a jury's verdict refuted the notion that her actions stemmed from a mental disease or defect. During her sentencing, the convicted murderer was escorted into the courtroom wearing an anti-spitting guard, a precautionary measure instituted after previous violent outbursts directed at her own legal counsel. The messy incident occurred when she physically assaulted her defense attorney, prompting his request to delay the trial for expert evaluation of her competency to stand trial. This altercation unfolded publicly in the courtroom, underlying just how terrible her behavior was. Shaybusness received the sternest of punishments, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Shannon Fox Hamblin. Shannon Fox Hamblin, a resident of Williamsburg, made headlines when she appeared in Whitley County Circuit Court to address probation and parole violations. However, her courtroom presence turned into a disaster as she allegedly disrupted proceedings and assaulted a bailiff, showcasing her notorious confrontational behavior. Renowned for her volatile temperament, Shannon had a reputation for inciting chaos wherever she ventured. The incident unfolded around 2 p.m. on February 20th, 2017, as Shannon, aged 42, stood before Judge Paul Winchester for a bond revocation hearing. Her bond faced revocation due to absconding probation supervision and failing drug tests, which revealed traces of methamphetamine in her system.
And who's representing you today?
I'm represented by Jesus Christ.
All right, so I'm going to appoint Mr. Findale
No,
to represent you today.
I don't want Mr. Findale.
Well,
I have that right.
You don't get to choose. You don't get to choose.
Well, she can represent herself.
I can, and Jesus is going to represent through me. I do not want legal counsel. I have the best counsel.
Despite her fervent objections, Winchester grants the Commonwealth Attorney's motion to revoke her probation. Consequently, bailiffs are instructed to remove Hamblin from the courtroom and place her under custody. Chaos erupted as Court Security Officer David Engel intervened to restore order, only to face defiance from Shannon Hamblin. Despite Engel's efforts, Head of Court Security Brian Kirby and Bailiff Ed Travaney were summoned to quell the escalating situation. Hamblin vehemently resisted, persisting in pleading her case and refusing to comply. She proclaimed loudly that she must address the judge, shouting that her life was on the line and that she would rather die than go to prison. She was also citing her unwavering faith in Jesus' divine protection. Despite her fervent resistance, Hamblin was eventually subdued and removed from the courtroom, though her protests echoed through the halls. Subsequently, she faced a litany of charges, including contempt of court, second-degree assault, resisting arrest, second-degree disorderly conduct, and public intoxication with controlled substances, leading to her confinement in the Whitley County Detention Center. Amber Pereira. Next on the list is Amber Pereira, who pleaded for redemption and sought a second chance to amend her grievous mistake. However, the anguish of her victim's family reverberated in the courtroom, demanding retribution in the form of a lifetime behind bars. In a pivotal moment, Circuit Judge Christopher Sabella rendered his verdict, 50 years of incarceration. Pereira, 31, stood in solemn silence as the weight of her actions bore down upon her. The tragic events unfolded when Pereira, intoxicated behind the wheel, careened into the Felipak family's Hyundai on the Leroy Selman Expressway. The collision claimed the lives of Louise, Rita, and their 8-year-old daughter, Georgia, leaving devastation in its wake. Prosecutors fervently urged for a life sentence, stressing the magnitude of Pereira's recklessness on that fateful day in August 2017. The catastrophic impact sent shockwaves through the community, with Tracy Lee Kelly, the driver of the Jeep, left grappling, with severe injuries amidst the wreckage. Despite her Kia spinning out in the median, Amber Pereira managed to regain control and continued driving, eventually coming to a halt approximately 2 miles from the scene after a tire dislodged from her vehicle. Subsequent blood tests conducted hours post-crash revealed Pereira's blood alcohol concentration at 0.10. Testimony from a Tampa police officer suggested her alcohol levels could have soared to a staggering 0.226 at the time of the incident. In the eyes of Florida law, a driver is considered impaired with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08 or higher. Furthermore, receipts unveiled Pereira's purchases of beer on 2 occasions preceding the collision, while investigators discovered an empty 24-ounce beer container within her car. Further analysis uncovered that in addition to alcohol, Amber Pereira had 3 cannabis-related compounds in her system, with 2 at levels deemed sufficient to impair her cognitive functions, as testified.
Moments ago, Amber Pereira found out how long she'll spend in prison for killing a family in a deadly crash on the Selman Expressway. A judge just sentenced her to 50 years in state prison. Prosecutors say Pereira was intoxicated and driving more than 120 miles an hour when she killed a Tampa couple and their 8-year-old daughter.
Pereira had languished in custody since the tragic collision, the gravity of the incident going beyond mere accident. As the sentencing loomed, she, a former paralegal, sat adorned in orange jail attire, intermittently grappling with tears behind her thick-rimmed glasses. The pivotal moment arrived, marked by the judge's solemn pronouncement. With a stern countenance, he rendered the guilty verdict. The weight of her transgressions bore down heavily as she faced a sentence of 50 years in prison. Upon hearing the judgment, Pereira's composure shattered, her sobs echoing through the courtroom as she buried her head in despair. Casting a final glance at her family, she was led away by a bailiff. Melissa Hardwick. Our last Karen should have taken her skills to the Olympics. Melissa Hardwick faced a cascade of fresh charges following her brazen assault on a judge within the precincts of family court. Judge Jennifer Edwards presided over a case involving a domestic violence complaint lodged against Hardwick by her estranged husband. However, the proceedings took a dramatic twist when Hardwick received a 10-day sentence, inciting her to catapult across the bench in a fit of fury, prompting swift intervention from court security. Captured on surveillance footage, the confrontation unfolds as Hardwick's husband articulates the rationale behind his protective order request. Despite Judge Edwards' admonition to desist, Hardwick persists in her defiance, disregarding the directive to remain silent under penalty of contempt.
She'll be arrested for 10 days for contempt of court. Go now.
In response, Judge Edwards meted out the sentence, triggering Hardwick's impulsive leap over the bench. Swiftly, 3 security officers subdued Hardwick, ensuring the safety of all present. Fortunately, Judge Edwards emerged unscathed, while Hardwick bore minor facial abrasions as a consequence of the altercation. Amid the courtroom turmoil, security officers swiftly mobilized to shield the judge and restore order. Among them, Adam Dodson, a court security officer, demonstrated exceptional courage by interposing himself between Hardwick and the esteemed jurist, risking his well-being to safeguard her. Surveillance footage immortalized the moment when Dodson tackled Hardwick to the ground, his decisive action averting any physical harm to the judge. Amidst the chaos, Hardwick's struggle against the officer's restraint laid bare her pent-up fury and frustration. Reflecting on the unprecedented event, Dodson remarked that in his 3.5 years of service, such a grave incident had never before unfolded within the courtroom. In the aftermath of her explosive courtroom outburst, Melissa Hardwick's life plunged into a shadowy abyss. The judge wasted no time in addressing the gravity of her actions. In addition to the initial 10-day contempt of court sentence, Hardwick now faces a barrage of additional charges, each casting a grim shadow over her future. Foremost among these charges is third-degree terroristic threatening, emblematic of the peril she posed to the judge's safety and the well-being of all present. Moreover, Hardwick faces an array of other severe charges, underlining the magnitude of her transgressions. Hardwick also earned herself a 120-day jail sentence for contempt of court stemming from the altercation. Which of these Karens do you think deserved their sentence the most? Tell us in the comments section. Also, to watch some more videos with equally captivating content, click on one of the cards appearing on your screen now.